Hi, it's Chip. In contradiction to earlier videos where we had an audience in the Discord channel, this is going to be a video that I'm just going to be doing on my own. And we're going to tackle a very particular issue that I always found very annoying when I encountered it, and you always encounter it. And the issue has to do with the Galactic Colossus. In particular, that the tractor beams of the Galactic Colossus essentially do not work half the time, and that's always a bit annoying. Let me showcase the problem. Do note that the tractor beam should be pulling up a unit every 6 seconds, so you'd be eating 2 tech-free units every 6 seconds. But when we do that, let's do the Sally Shearers, there we go. But when we do that, and we have a whole bunch of Titans, then on average the beam weapon doesn't work. And what usually happens, because that one triggered, but this one did not. What usually happens in this case is that there is some code in here that doesn't make a lot of sense, but we'll go into that. That prevents this tractor beam from working if it has the same target as the laser. And initially, the tractor beam will always have the same target as the laser, and that can cause a whole bunch of issues, right? Currently they're not functioning, as you can see, and nobody knows why. Oh, there you go, got one. But all in all, it's very sad. It's not really what we'd like to happen. And we're gonna look into and see what happens, why they're doing it, and how we can do it differently. So in this first video, as usual, we're going to investigate the context. And the context is just the Galactic Colossus file, which has this adjustment thread, so that if it's attacking a unit that's behind him, or trying to attack a unit that's behind him, that it resets the weapon. And we have these 2 armed tractors, which are this class right here, the ADFT Tractor Claw. I have no idea what this abbreviation means. AN Default Force Tractor Claw. No clue. But we've got this Tractor Claw, and this is where all the magic happens within the Galactic Colossus, and it's not a really big weapon. It doesn't do anything strange either. Actually, it does, but it's not written in a way that you wouldn't expect. All of this is well within the capabilities of the game. But let's look at what the weapon does, and we're gonna start by looking at this play-affix beam start. So we have to realize that this is not just any weapon. These tractor weapons are actually beam weapons, and beam weapons have a start point for their beam effect and an end point for their beam effect. Usually the start point is when they start shooting, and the end point is when they stop shooting. And this triggers when we have a target that's valid. So we have a target, we get that current target, and then this is where some of the weirdness happens. Then we check if it's valid for some category. So it shouldn't be a structure, shouldn't be a command unit. Imagine tractoring the ACU of your opponent. Hot damn. Anyway, shouldn't be an experimental either. Too bad. Shouldn't be a naval unit, a sub-commander, but it should be a unit. Okay. And if one of these doesn't add up, then it just returns. And the issue with this return here is that it doesn't reset the target. So if our beam weapon is, if our tractor claw here, this little guy here on the right or on the left, is targeting a structure, then it won't function until either the target is lost because it was out of range, or because the target is destroyed, because we're not resetting the target here. Anyway, assume that we have a unit like this Titan here. Then we get the real target. And what this means is you can target a blip, a radar blip, and we don't want to tractor the radar blip, we want to tractor the actual unit. And there is some code here checking whether or not there's some spoofing involved. And if there is, we check if is there a blip close enough to the actual unit, and if so, then we just grab that unit instead. So here we have the actual unit as a target. And then we have this check here that says, hey, is this target already being used by something? And what we mean with already being used is one of our weapons, and this is what I mentioned with the beam weapon and the other tractor arm, is one of our weapons already trying to attack this target. And if that's the case, then again, we just return. We don't scan for a new target, we just return. Which is pretty bad, right? By all means. But if all of this succeeded, so we don't have a blip, we have a unit. The unit is not some unit that we can't attack, and the unit is not already being targeted, then we start doing the effects that the things that you'd expect, the tractoring itself. Right, we've got the tractor thread here and a tractor watch thread. And we have some effects and the default FX beams. Alright, so let's look at this tractor thread here, because this is quite interesting. If we have a beam, then we do stuff, otherwise we don't. If we have a muscle, then we do stuff, otherwise we don't. Again, we're not retargeting here, which means that if for some reason there's no beam or there's no muscle, then again the tractor is not doing nothing, stuck on the same target, doing absolutely nothing. We tell the game to not target the target, right? Because otherwise, because you're grabbing it towards the Colossus, all the support units around the Colossus may start attacking it, even though that would be hilarious. It's not desirable. And then we compute the distance between the beam starting position and the end position of the beam, and we create a slider here which we attach, and then we move the slider back. So what happens, I mean, you can see that when we're looking at the bones. Kind of forgot how you do that. What do you do? The bone. There you go. So let's look at the bones here. There you go. So now you can see that the tractor arm is actually being extended with that slider towards the unit, and then the unit is attached to that bone right there. That's how the tractor arm works. That's also why if I now would rotate the Colossus suddenly, then the unit that I'm tractoring... Oh damn, this works bad. Just tractor something, please. Anyway, point proven, it works bad. Yeah. So if we would rotate, then the so it's not rotating fast enough, but then the unit rotates along with it. We move back towards our default location. You see, so here we have the standard distance, which is equal to the distance of the beam, and we set the goal to be at our origin again. We wait for the slide to finish, and if the slide is finished, then we kill the unit and do some effects. And then we've got the tractor watch thread, which kind of says, well, as long as the target is still alive, then wait, idle. It's like a waiting lock. And the moment the target is dead, kill the threat, destroy the slider, detach everything from the unit, and then reset the target. So they did know that the function exists. Anyway, we noticed some problems, and you can see that it's not really working at the moment. And we're going to tackle that. And we're going to tackle that by looking at how a weapon actually functions. Because there are a couple of functions that we could use. For example, the playFX beam start. If you look at this default beam weapon, weapon file, there we go. playFX beam end. There should be a playFX beam start here too. There we go. There it is. Which starts when we create a projectile at the muzzle. And then we do all of this, which adds some audio, lifetime, at the yawn. We enable the beam, we add some trash, etc. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening here, which is not really interesting to the tractor beam. The only beam effect that we're interested in is the effect that I'm trying to show you all, but the weapon doesn't kind of... Yeah, so that... Okay, so but the effect ends immediately. Anyway, it's not perfect. So this is already when we're creating a projectile, so our target is sort of already fixed. And in general, when we look at the weapon Lua, then we have an onGotTarget and onLostTarget function. And that's where we actually want to check for anything tractor beam related. Because this triggers the moment that we got a target way before anything else happens. Which is kind of cool. Because that's what we're interested in. And then we have a whole bunch of other stuff that we're not particularly interested in. Uses energy. Ooh, what if the tractor beam uses more energy for tech-free units? What if you could tractor an ACU if you had sufficient energy? Oh well, it's a good thing I'm not in the balance team. So let's see. Yeah, that's it for the orientation actually. Let's just start hacking away at it.